Hey y'all, this is your girl BMORE and welcome to the Dummies Cauldron.
Hey, this is your girl BMORE, and you are listening to the weekly roundup. So, today we are going to go over the dates of the 15th to the 21st. Now, the theme for this week is a revolution, okay? But whose revolution is it? Whose revolution is it? So this week starts off with Jupiter squaring Saturn. And so here we find it that it's very easy to become loaded with other people's responsibilities. We need to learn to set our own priorities. Learn to say no when people try to shift all of their burdens onto you. At this time, we can pursue promising opportunities that will require some effort and calculated risk. And by calculated risk, guys, I mean, can you actually pull it off? If you cannot pull it off, you don't have the capabilities, at that point is a dream. Don't get yourself hurt. It is a dream. This also offers us the ability to get broad knowledge. Now, the next thing I really want to bring up with this placement is that we see a shift from Saturn being into Aries, Saturn and Neptune moving out of Pisces, moving into Aries, and then we also see Jupiter moving into Cancer from Gemini. And so when we're in Pisces deals with our beliefs. It deals with understanding and what has yet to be established. And for a year, we dealt with Jupiter being in Gemini, which dealt with a lot of thinking, decision-making, versatility, and duality. And so we may have seen maybe limits in our beliefs, restrictions, maybe people trying to exploit people's belief systems and having to there's a restricted level of understanding. Now that it is moving from a water to fire combo with Aries, we see themes around restrictions in who people are, their identities, making restrictions in fighting and pioneering, initiating new creative endeavors. But we see a growth of feelings, a growth of loyalty, devotion, etc., but also emotionalism. What are we devoted to? What are we fighting for? So if we have people pushing responsibilities and burdens on us, we have to be careful that these agendas are our own. You know, we don't know where these thoughts and ideas are coming from. Now we also see that Jupiter is square Neptune, and so this is a idealistic placement. People are prone to false hopes and false promises, either from yourself or others. You know, so we have to put up some caution around these people trying to sell you a bridge. Like, this is like a snake oil salesman person. You getting people riled up around these beliefs and what people should do and shouldn't do, and it's just not true. None of it's true. Okay, so yes, the revolution will be televised, but is it your revolutions you have? You know, don't have people, you know how, you're young and then you've seen people get gassed up to fight somebody, all to find out that you see somebody like real skeezy, slimy in the back. They set up all the pawns and people fist fighting and slinging and all this stuff and they running away. You know, and for my prime example of that, for people who are familiar with the show, if you watch Recess, you see Randall either like snitched on people or they had people set up to fight on his behalf, but he never really got busy like that. That's what this is. This is a Randall situation. That's why I told y'all in these last couple streams, like, people will be streams and videos, they will be making their problems your problems. That is not my problem. That is a you problem. Okay, and don't sell yourself the bridge to your daggone self. That's the stupidest thing I ever seen. You selling yourself a bridge for a pocket lint that you would give to a dust bunny, right? You know, if you're going to help somebody, I would recommend this week that you try to help them with cautions, because people will be trying to take advantage of you and your goodwill. Now, if you are a person who feels a deep compulsion, like very deep, like in your soul, like you can't even stop it if you want to help someone and be of service, baby, there is so much charity out here in this world. There are cats with no mothers, dogs with no fathers, Somebody's child needs school supplies. There's an old person looking to be read to in the nursing home. Okay, there are clothes that you can drop to homeless shelters. You know, homeless shelters receive little to no socks. People give them all types of clothes but socks. Go donate some socks, like a lot in different sizes. Find something to do with your time, please. Okay, but this week we will see a ramping up of people really trying to take advantage, people being slick, smooth, very crusty musty energy. All right, now on the 16th we are going to see that the sun will sextile Chiron, and so Chiron is the wounded healer, and the sun represents our father, kids, and creativity and expression. And so here we can either have wounds around the father, children, and forms of creativity and self-expression, but we may have a positive breakthrough. We more than likely will. Whatever wounds we have here, we'll be able to make ourselves whole. We'll be able to tap into our own form of authenticity, which I find beautiful right after Father's Day. So, you know, if you want to patch things up, maybe with your children, your father, or maybe even a lover, this can be a great time to do that. Now on the 17th, we are going to have our last quarter moon. And so what is the last quarter moon, BMORE? I'll tell you. So the last quarter moon, well, let me start off with this. The phases have different quarters, okay? So we start off a moon phase. When people talk about a new moon, that is the start of a lunar phase or a lunar month, right? 7 days after the new moon, we have a first quarter moon, which means that the sun squares the moon. The moon squares the sun. So it squares the sun from this origin point of the new moon. So we start to reach a little bit of challenges, right? 7 days after that, we get a full moon where the sun and the moon are 180 degrees apart, like they do a full opposition, facing each other. And then 7 days after the full moon, we get the last quarter moon, which is the last square. And so we are wrapping up the energy of that lunar month, that lunar phase, and we're about to start a whole new one with a whole new moon. Okay, so on the 16th we are going to go through our last quarter moon. Now here the sun and the moon will square, so we have some hard aspects that deal around life issues, and we have to wrap them up. And this will be probably mutable life issues. Now this new moon does happen in Pisces, and so it is dealing with our emotional perception. Here we see that we have mental distress, issues with sleeping, food, the stomach, maybe a loss of happiness. We could see public trends, maybe around women, maybe around famous women to boot, or regular women then become famous. Okay. We originally feel like a zest or some type of luck and generosity. You really want to do it all. But under this transit, we have to learn realism in what we doing what we only can possibly and feasibly do in any given time. And because we may or may not learn this, we may see health problems. Now, right now, the sun is very close to Jupiter. And so this is what we call under the rays. And so Jupiter is being, we can argue that it has some type of bombardment. It has to deal with some of the heat of the sun until it goes into a direct conjunction, which we did have a little bit of it earlier because it passed over the sun. But eventually the sun will be in Cancer really like in maybe like 6 or 7 days. So we'll probably end up having some more of that together. We also have the sun square Rahu, and so we can see sickness with the father, illnesses with men, particularly children or men. Sometimes it's, for some people, it's men that we have romantic dynamics for. We can see people infected with ego. They want to be recognized, or maybe they are recognized for not good things or bad things. There are themes around individuality and the rational mind, and how rational are we? We're probably not. We think we make more sense than we actually do. We also see that there are some squares to Jupiter and the moon. So there's a strong urge for freedom and faith, and that is what motivates us now. But we have to make sure that the facts are there. It's easy to slip into indulgence, so we're overspending, we're overeating, all of that. We have to keep an open mind, not only with our own thoughts, but the thoughts and views of others. We like, people try to be, I'm expensive, but it's just my own thoughts that I expand with. No, we have to keep an open mind. And if we keep an open mind, it might reduce a lot of people trying to like scam you and swindle you at this point. Okay. Now we also see Rahu square Jupiter, and so we can see the husband, the guru, which was also the teacher. We see duty and principles, and children could possibly be sick. Maybe they are disturbed. Maybe the husband, like I said, the teacher, principles, duty, what is the right thing to do? They're disturbed now. There's issues with creativity. There's issues with wealth. They can be underhanded means. Now, this is a good time for communication of all kinds. And for some people, most people, women can be very helpful at this time. They can, help you out in times of need. Now, we can see general trends in technology happen. We can see disturbances around intellect. Maybe people are faking intellect. They're faking commerce. They think they're more adaptive than they are. They're lying at this point. They may be trying to lie. But again, this is a lot of disturbances here that can clear up, because we had more mental disturbances earlier. But now they're making headway where we can use the technology. We can use these mass trends and disturbances and these illusions to our advantage now. We see more inventions, technology, groups, the internet, magic, astrology, and insights come up to the surface. People are more interested in humanitarianism. They're interested in change. We see the first kind of sparks of rebellion. We see that individuals and lawbreakers of tradition, or breakers of tradition, they want freedom. Their freedom is awakened now. And so we can see mass trends that show up from here, and these can be mass trends of massive disturbances. They are ready to tear this thing up. We also see that organizations, meetings, groups, friends can uplift you, and maybe you get rewarded in gifts from them. We can network and meet new people. We can have opportunities here. We can have innovation. There's a healthy emotional detachment, and we are then able to have better perception. And maybe for some people, they might even have almost like a psychic ability that pops in. They're very perceptive. It almost borderlines on psychism. And I think really what's important too here, because Pisces really deals with perception, and how perceptive they are, how good at it they are, really depends on where it is placed in people's houses. Because at the worst, Pisces can be so emotional, so sensitive. It's hard to get things done. They're so moody. Everything is so dramatic. It's just very difficult. Okay. And Jupiter gives us generosity and emotional tenacity. And so we have to learn to use our perception properly. We have to make sure that we see things properly. And then we're then able to commit to something. Do not commit to something and we're not sure how things are going. That is not wise. That is not wise. If you're not sure how something going, you don't commit to something, because we already have placements where people are trying to put their burdens onto you, lie to you, take advantage of you. No, that is not wise. So we want to make sure that we're not being overly emotional and we're not being able to perceive what's actually going on properly. We want to tap into that psychic perception. That's what we want. We don't want to make more problems because we weren't paying attention. Now on the 18th, Mercury goes into Virgo. Now, for my Patreon members, I will be doing the risings on there for Mercury and Virgos, particularly for the other planets, for the more in-depth breakdowns. I know I've been giving a lot of that for, just everyone, but some of these breakdowns that goes into the zodiacs of the sun, moon, rising, and all this other stuff, that takes a lot of work to calculate all of that. So parts of these things, we're just talking about the general transits, will be for the public. It will be put onto YouTube, but for my Patreons, they will be getting that for them. They really support me and they really just ride. So they are getting all of that. And that way they can just keep kind of looking. So if you are interested, you can always join my Patreon. And if you are not interested in joining the Patreon, you can always just buy the item individually. Okay. Now for Mercury being in Virgo, this is really the kicker, and I want y'all to really pay attention to this. I'll be doing the breakdowns based off of people, like I said, sun, moon, and risings. This will be a whole separate video, okay? Because I still have to get Jupiter and Cancer out as well. But here with Mercury being in Virgo, you're more physically attractive, you're well dressed, you're helpful now, you like to help other people, and there's a fearlessness. There is skills in writing and music and being able to learn quickly. You're very smart, you're very disciplined, and the routines are very easy. There's also from like sexual perfectionism, or like, yeah, that's the best way I can say that. Yeah, sexual perfectionism. There can also be lack of imagination and passion at times. Sometimes they're not really interested in being social, and they're very irritated by the idea of socializing. They can be overworking and being a workaholic to the point that it brings illnesses here. This placement is good for medicine, gardening, but there is a danger of criticism, scheming, and suspicion. Now, this transit starts on June 18th and it ends August 6th. Now, this will have 2 months of this versus dealing with Ketu. Now, Ketu conjunct Mars creates a volatile nature. Ketu is a hitless animal. It's a hitless monster. And so we see things that are unstable. We may fight for recognition. We can see an increase of injuries and enemies. So maybe we get injured, our friends get injured, our enemies get injured. We see the enemies and sometimes they get beat up. We see our siblings get wounded, and for some people it's so severe they may not survive. We also see people have a denial of obstacles, and so maybe they deny that their freedom is being oppressed, and maybe they deny the obstacle of freedom from oppression. We can also see a loss of energy. People get more tired lately, a loss of logic. Things that make sense don't make sense. People are not smart because remember, Mars gives logic. It's a strong engineering planet. We go from A to B. This will help us, open this up. I made a can opener to open a can. Things that make sense. Things will not be making sense. I'm sorry. There will be obstacles in common sense. I'm going to be quite frank. Obstacles in science. Some people will have obstacles in refusal. So people want to refuse things that they can't. They also want to have some obstacles in certain forms of intelligence and logic. This overall makes for very strong spiritual insights, and we see the themes of logic versus the spirit. We see themes of undisciplined and disorderly versus order. And so we have to be very careful because we can get extreme aggressive behavior. Both K2 and Mars are very hot, and they deal with fighting, obstacles, death, and violence. I'm gonna be quite frank. You can see violence. And so I want everyone to be safe, and I want everyone to be smart from the 18th until the 6th of August. Be very smart, because these people are more extreme, but they might not be smart. They're extreme, but they could be dummies. They're extreme, but they're violent dummies. Okay. Now, I will be also doing, like I said, the podcast episode talking about the fixed stars and the mythologies that we have. And I want to be quite frank, we do got some stars in placements for a lot of combustible events to occur. Now, I already told everyone on my Patreon to be very, very careful around aggressive and over the top people. We can see a lot of fanatic behavior, and some people may get hurt. Okay, so y'all really be safe these next couple of months. I don't want to hear no sad news, no bad news. Okay, I don't want to hear that. Now on the 19th we have Jupiter sextile Mars. And here, this is a good time for starting opportunities or following up on the opportunities that we already have initiated. This is a good time for tactful self-promotion. This is a good time for tactful self-promotion. We can also see that there may be a tendency to be too pushy and try to push our ideas and push ourselves onto other people. Please don't do that. We also can see that we can get inheritance from like family or even insurance. This is a good time to heal conflicts. And the last thing I'll say with these opportunities, they come very quickly, guys. The opportunities come just as quick as they go. So like I said, what I really, really recommend to you, so you're not outside looking dumb and looking like a dummy, only do what you're capable of doing. After we establish what our capabilities are, right, we need to establish if the person offering the opportunity is trustworthy or if they're lying. Okay, that's the main two things. Can you do it? Is it something that you can do once, more than once? Maybe. Is a person reliable? Are they a liar? Are they a scammer? Are they trying to put more burdens onto me? Okay, so those are the main things we need to learn this week. Again, y'all, be safe. I love y'all. I don't want nothing bad happening to nobody. I don't want y'all writing in the comment section, girl, this what happened to me, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, this is what we're dealing with right now. So I will talk to you guys about the transits and the stuff that is going on. This stuff is very, very like I said, mature themes. For some people that know, who follow me, some of the themes are very similar to the prediction I talked about with our president in chief a couple months ago, about how he could be having certain things go on with him. Look, we can have similar themes like that pop up for people too. So for the regular folk, that don't have agents, they don't have bodyguards, nothing, y'all take y'all bus home. Y'all be safe. Y'all stay away from people that have these very intense, aggressive ideals. You stay away from people who too dumb not to get mad at having a conversation or using words, because again, common sense will slide right off the radar, and the dummies will rise up, and then they'll start putting hands and feet on people, and sometimes worse than that. All right, but y'all be safe and y'all take care. Bye.